thank you for choosing Across the Fence. I'm Mikell. It is the fourth Wednesday of the month, which means it's time for our Bird Notes program. And this month, we're going to update you on the status of Vermont's endangered common tern population. Joining us as he does each month in the studio is our bird expert and conservation biologist from Audubon Vermont, Mark LaBarr. Great to have you in.
Always great to be here, Will.
So I'm going to get to the common tern in just a moment. I can't help but start the program with asking you about high waters and floods. And so how do birds generally do in major events like this?
So it's interesting. This particular flood came through a little late in the season as far as bird nesting is concerned. So many birds got their young off. And as I've said to you before, birds have feathers. And those feathers, they have a special oil when they preen. The old saying, like water off a duck's back, which keeps them dry. And so, you know, for instance, when those downpours were coming in my yard, the bluebirds and the phoebes were tucked away somewhere, and as soon as the rain let up, they were right back out feeding. So it impacts different birds. You know, obviously field nesting birds that may have nests lost those nests. Some birds like the Louisiana water thrush, which nests right along streams, may have done that, but fortunately it wasn't right in the middle of June.
And for waterfowl, no joke, this isn't too much water. That's what waterfowl does.
Yeah, so they're fine with that, and you know, the lake has come up almost 2 feet, if not more than that now, and they can adjust to those factors. So
Mark, speaking then of the lake, and our focus today is the endangered common tern and the population, and I remember, because I've now known you for almost a quarter of a century, that this is a huge part of your work and your research. So it's a favorite of yours. It's a bird you've worked with for a long, long time.
It is. I've been working with the common tern now more than 30 years and the population here on Lake Champlain. And it's one of those things that I do every summer. Audubon does the work. It's funded through the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department. And, you know, we've got this beautiful bird, the common tern, and this is a bird that many people may think of along the coast, black cap, red bill. They're also known as sea swallows because of the way they fly, and they nest, you know, here on Lake Champlain in small numbers.
So again, that's the follow-up question in Vermont. Where are they nesting, and is it exclusively on Lake Champlain?
It is exclusively on Lake Champlain. So I think we have one more shot of the tern here, just to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, there you go. He's, again, a little black tip on the bill. That bill has ended up on the top of my head on a number of times. They are very aggressive when they're out there.
Even to their research friends?
Oh, they don't. I don't think they like me very much. In fact, they'll bing me, and they won't bing the other people that are out on the lake with me. So
again,
they know
knowing you for as long as I do, when we look close enough, there's actually a couple little scars up there, folks.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing. And we're going to see, and I'll talk about this later, pictures of some of your colleagues in hard hats.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
just for that reason.
So the bill aside, that's helping them eat, hunt?
They're like flying tweezers, and they pick fish right off the water.
Okay.
But when, you know, nesting colonially, and you asked where they nest, you know, they nest on the northern part of Lake Champlain in the inland sea, up east of North Hero and west of Swanton, St. Albans area. And so they'll use that bill to, you know, they nest on these small islands, and because of that, they nest densely, and that way they can protect the nests from people like me and other predators by diving them and chasing them away.
So multiple islands? You've referred in years past to a specific island, as I recall.
So there's Papasquash Rock and Grandma's Island. Grandma's wasn't used this year, Papasquash and Rock were, and they're both islands that are declared critical habitat by the state. So not only are the birds endangered, but the islands have protection as well.
We got a bit of a preview there. It looks like, as I again recall, they nest on the ground.
Yeah, so here's the eastern, you know, that eastern arm of Lake Champlain. That's where they've always been since the 1900s. And then this is Rock Island here, which is, you can see, it's maybe the size, the footprint of a house. And we may have upwards of 70, 80 birds nesting on that island. This is what the nests look like. You can see usually 2 to 3 eggs right on the ground. That little yellow tag is how we mark them in order to follow their progress. and then right next to that is a chick shelter. And this is what the chicks look like when they first hatch. This is probably a day-old chick, and they look just like the eggs, very cryptically colored, so that predators, if they can get out there, these chicks can, within a day or two, move very quickly and hide themselves. And so that's one of the things that we take advantage of. Here's a chick in a chick shelter, and that gets them out of, you mentioned the weather. So having places like this to tuck into when those heavy rains are coming down is important, especially for the really young birds, because they don't have the feather development.
He just looked like a ball of fluff. That one that you were holding is a half a pound, not even?
Not even. They're tiny. They're, they're a couple ounces maybe at the most. And yeah, they're great when they're tiny, and then, it takes them about 3 weeks for them to get to be old enough to fledge. And so that's kind of the key time that we work with them.
And that's happening when, Mark?
So they get back usually beginning of May, and right now we had a really good season this year. So the birds are pretty much finishing up at this point. They'll finish up by mid-July. We do have some nests that are still being incubated by re-nesters on Rock Island. So we may have turns right through the end of August.
And so again, this time of year, the end of July, as we head into August, they've probably fledged for the most part?
Yeah, this year they did. In years where they get hit with predation early on, they may re-nest a little later, but most of the chicks are off this year, yeah.
The shelters, I assume they didn't build those. That's part of your work. And again, the broader question, what is Audubon Vermont doing to help to support the endangered common tern?
So we do things like that with the shelters. We put buoys up around the islands to minimize human disturbance on the islands, which has really worked. Again, these birds are one of those things where if you go on the islands, you're apt, and you don't have a hard hat, you're apt to get whomped.
Whomped, and you're disrupting
their nesting.
The whole nesting and family.
Because of those chicks and they nest right next to each other, within a foot or two of each other. So just walking around on the island, you can step on eggs or chicks, and that's what we try to prevent.
You indicated it's been a good year for the birds. Is some insights into why for all birds, or specifically for the common tern, and
so
why?
For the terns, and it's interesting, we had a very low predation this year, so high reproductive success. And it's always...
Just to jump in, those predators are?
Great horned owls, which come out at night, and also black-crowned night herons. But for whatever reason, this year we didn't have a lot of predation there. There's some birds that shifted to Grandma's Island, so maybe the predation was focused there. A little rougher time on Rock Island, but we're going to probably get more than 200 chicks off this year.
Again, this is your main area of your research. You spend, 2 to 5 days a month or more on these islands?
At least a day a week we go up. In fact, I'll be going up right after I finish with you and finish talking, and so yeah, we keep an eye on them all summer long.
So who's part of the crew? I do know you're the crew chief, but you have a team, or are you by yourself?
So every year, at least for the past 3 or 4 years, we've had a conservation intern that joins me on this. This person joins me throughout the year. This is the crew on the side of Papasquash Island where we're searching for chicks. They hide up in all those shrubs and everything like that, so I had to move the boat, and I got a picture of them.
Well, that's where I said the person on the far right is the one with the hard hat,
That
I
is,
believe.
yes, so that's probably Claire, and she's my intern. She knows better.
She's got some experience.
Yeah. So here's Claire again, and this is with a larger chick. This is what they look like right before they fledge, and this is the stage that they're at right now. But the conservation intern basically joins me doing this and banding, and really is a big help. And then we occasionally have volunteers. You saw that group that was out there. Here's another one, Sage, who's a CVU student, just graduated, who's been working with me. And it's always great to introduce them to the world of field biology.
So we've been talking, and again, we've got a picture. This is you in a banding situation?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do in order to keep track of the chicks is we'll put metal bands on their legs with a unique number. And that way we can figure out how reproductively successful the population has been, because we can track those chicks, much the same way we track the nests.
And again, you've been doing this for quite a while. It must be kind of neat to see, oh, there's a bird that I banded a year or two ago. Does it go back further than that?
So these birds can live up to 15 to 20 years. They're long-lived birds. And I do occasionally see birds with bands, which are probably young chicks that I banded that have returned to the colony, which is always nice to see. We do get a little immigration from the St. Lawrence and the Great Lakes populations, so it could be one of them. But yeah, it's always nice to see other birds, whether they're ours or whether they're somebody else's, bolstering this population.
Now, speaking of nice things, all of this work is great, but every once in a while you get a surprise, and you shared with us a final picture that you sort of put in the surprise category.
Yeah, and this is a Caspian tern nest. There were 2 on Papasquash Island this year.
So I just have to ask, how can you tell the difference?
A bigger egg, and you can see here the chick
right there on the right
is all white. Whereas the common tern chicks are much darker and speckled and stuff like this. So we still don't know the fate of these chicks. We haven't been able to find them, but there's so much vegetation on Papasquash Island right now that we're literally on our hands and knees looking for these chicks as they burrow into the grass.
Well, a great year for the terns and a really good update. We want to point out to our viewers that if they have questions or they want to help with a bird identification, you can pass your bird-related questions along to Mark. His address is at the screen. Probably easiest to send him an email along with your photos to mlabarr@audubon.org. You send your questions and pictures, and Mark will try to come up with the answers for us on the next edition of Bird Notes. Mark, it's always a great pleasure to see you, and what a neat thing to have been involved in this work for going on 30 years or more. Just wonderful, and I appreciate the update.
Yeah, it's been a passion of mine, and I'm glad to be able to continue to do it.
Always appreciate, and we'll see you the 4th Wednesday of next month.
Sounds good. Thanks, Will.
That's our program for today. We know you have choices, so thanks for choosing us. I'm Will Mikell, inviting you to join us back here each weekday afternoon for another visit across the fence.
All right.